Among Machiavelli's works lies a habit that can make you unstoppable. Most people will never accept her, as she demands something brutal: complete control over oneself. But if you manage to master it, your potential will no longer depend on luck, motivation, or approval. He will depend only on you. Stay until the end, for I will show you how this single Machiavellian habit can change your thinking, actions, and victories. Machiavelli once said, "He who deceives himself has already lost." Before striving for power, before trying to control others, before even dreaming of success, you must first master yourself. This is the first and cruelest habit of Machiavellian thinking: ruthless self-awareness. Most people live in an illusion. They see themselves not as they truly are, but as they wish to be. They console themselves with justifications. I do my best. I am a good person. I deserve more. But Machiavelli would look at these words with cold amusement, for the truth, however unpleasant, is the only tool that sharpens the mind. When you lie to yourself, you become your own enemy. The most dangerous betrayal comes not from others, but from the image you have created of yourself. To truly rise, you must learn to observe yourself as if you were another person, coldly, clinically, without excuses or emotions. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What am I pretending not to see? Every weakness you hide will become a weapon your enemies use against you in the future. Every flaw you ignore will cost you more than honesty ever could. Machiavelli understood that power begins not with ambition, but with clarity, the courage to look into the eyes of one's nature. Imagine standing before a mirror that reflects not your face, but your essence, your greed, your laziness, your pride, your fear. Will you turn away, or will you watch until you understand it? The weak turn away from this reflection, but the strong study it. They learn to see their impulses as tools, not burdens. They turn shame into strategy and pain into information. Practicing ruthless self-awareness means shedding all comforting illusions. It is the realization that your failures are not due to the world's injustice, but because you were unprepared. It is the acknowledgement that your anger often conceals insecurity, and your confidence sometimes masks doubt. But this honesty, this cruel confrontation with reality, is what separates the powerless from the strong. When Machiavelli served the Florentine Republic, he observed kings, soldiers, and fools. He noticed that the most dangerous people were never the loudest or most confident. But those who quietly studied themselves did not strive for perfection. They sought precision. They knew exactly where they were strong and exactly where they were weak, and this made them inaccessible. A person who knows themselves is not susceptible to manipulation. Praise does not elevate them. Criticism does not destroy them. He acts not to be noticed, but to be effective. Every movement is deliberate. Every pause matters. While others react, he observes. When others speak, he weighs every word. And when he acts, he does so with full awareness of his true self and his abilities. But such self-awareness requires cruelty, not towards others, but towards oneself. This means subjecting one's mind to a harsh interrogation. You will have to confront the false notions you create about your boundaries, intentions, and motives. You will feel resistance as your ego fights to protect its illusions. But Machiavelli would tell you, if you want to command others, you must first conquer yourself. Once you develop this habit, everything changes. You no longer seek recognition because you understand your worth. You do not seek permanent comfort because you have learned to make peace with discomfort. You are not afraid of judgment because no one can expose what you have already faced. You walk through the world, not pretending to be more significant, but also not allowing yourself to be less significant. This self-awareness generates something greater: strategic patience. Understanding yourself, you no longer act impulsively. You begin to recognize when your emotions try to betray you. You understand that often it is time, not effort, that decides who wins and who loses. Just as a general studies his army before battle, a Machiavellian person examines his own mind before taking action. He knows when to advance, when to wait, and when to strike. He has mastered his inner chaos. Once a person learns to see themselves clearly, they begin to notice something deeper: the rhythm of time. Those who lack self-awareness rush through life believing that speed is a sign of progress. They act impulsively, mistakenly equating movement with dynamism. But those who look within themselves, who have mastered their nature, understand the dark truth. Nothing powerful grows in haste. Great victories, both in politics and in life, belong not to the most active, but to the most patient. This is the second Machiavellian habit: The discipline of strategic patience. Machiavelli observed how the impatient fell faster than the fools. He saw princes who seized power too early, generals who attacked before the enemy showed weakness, and people who destroyed themselves chasing opportunities instead of creating them. According to him, luck is a woman, and if you want to conquer her, you must treat her gently. Intolerance, in his opinion, was a sign of unpreparedness. To act without regard for time means to fight against the world, while the wise learn to move with it. Strategic patience is not laziness. It is not hesitation. It is calculation. It is understanding that time is not your enemy, but your most powerful weapon. Every delay, every pause, every silence is a moment when you accumulate invisible strength. You survey the battlefield while your opponents waste energy, frantically trying to strike at shadows. To the untrained eye, your stillness may seem like weakness. But the Machiavellian smile knows. Patience is not just waiting, but the skill to take the right position. A disciplined mind does not chase every opportunity. It studies which of them can increase its strength. A wise ruler, an experienced leader, a cunning thinker understands that a move made too early is as fatal as one made too late. There are moments when inaction is the most strategically correct step. True control lies not in actions but in restraint. Every predator knows this. The lion does not roar before the hunt. He waits. I observe. He allows the herd to relax before striking. This is not weakness. It is intent. Machiavelli viewed patience as a form of dominance. Those who cannot wait succumb to desires. Those who can wait subjugate their desires to their will. Imagine two men at war. One rushes forward, striving for victory, displaying his emotions with every movement. Another silently observes, noting every weakness, every predictable action. When he finally strikes, it appears effortless and inevitable, as if victory comes to him naturally. But it does not. It comes through patience, disguised as stillness. This discipline requires mastery over your emotions, demanding you silence the part of you that craves immediate reward. The modern mind is addicted to urgency. It fears stillness, as it forces self-reflection. But the Machiavellian mind thrives in silence. He does not need applause or validation. He needs an advantage. Every second of patience builds tension, focus, and clarity. When he finally acts, he does so with precision. And precision always beats speed. There will be moments when the world moves without you. Others will achieve success. Speak and shine while you remain silent. This will tempt you to break your rhythm, acting only to seem active. But understand, many rise quickly, only to burn out even faster. The Machiavellian does not envy them. He knows that time destroys the unprepared and rewards those who wait for their preparation to meet opportunity. Those who build slowly, as Machiavelli implied, create something lasting. Strategic patience is also an emotional battle. Those who react first lose control first. The ability to wait while others panic turns ordinary people into leaders. At the moment you learn to hold your tongue, observe instead of react, and act not from emotions but from intention. You separate yourself from the crowd, because patience directed by purpose is indistinguishable from power. This habit changes your attitude towards people. You begin to understand that most conflicts do not need to be resolved. They need to be calculated correctly. The insult you ignored today will become your trump card tomorrow. The silence you maintain today will become your power later. He who waits for the right moment does not need to demand respect. It is given to him naturally. People begin to fear your calmness because they cannot predict what lies behind it. They cannot read a person who is not in a hurry. And when you finally act, the world realizes something important. Your movements are not just reactions. They are the realization of a plan that has been building for a long time. You act with inevitability, as if fate itself follows your desire. But this illusion of fate is based solely on patience. The ability to postpone gratification, endure discomfort, and restrain oneself until the right moment arrives is the purest form of strength. However, this discipline cannot exist without another principle inherent to Machiavelli: control over emotions. After all, patience requires mastery in managing anger, fear, and desire. Without control over emotions, patience turns into disappointment. Without restraint, strategy turns into fluctuations. The next habit is a bridge between the mind and the moment: the art of controlled emotions. Within every person live two rulers, reason and emotion. The weak allow the latter to control the former. The strong change this order. Machiavelli knew that power is not a matter of physical strength or wealth. It is a matter of control. To dominate others, one must first master what moves within oneself. This is the third Machiavellian habit, the art of controlled emotions. Most people are slaves to their feelings. Their faces reveal anger. Their voices expose fear. Their actions lay bare weakness. They call it sincerity, but in reality, it is predictability. And predictability is death for power. A person who cannot hide their emotions is unable to lead, negotiate, or endure betrayal. They are like a puppet whose strings are pulled by circumstances. Machiavelli would whisper to him, "He who cannot control himself will soon be controlled by others." Emotions are not enemies. These are tools, but only when they are tuned. Feeling nothing is not strength, but the ability to manage one's feelings is true strength. A Machiavellian does not eliminate emotions. He disciplines them. Anger becomes energy, not an explosion. Fear becomes caution, not paralyzing horror. Desire is motivation, not obsession. Every emotion becomes a useful resource. A wise ruler uses emotions as a mask when it benefits him. He appears compassionate to earn trust, fierce to instill fear, calm to demonstrate strength. But beneath this mask, he remains calculating, aware, and unpredictable. Imagine a battlefield not of soldiers, but of minds. The one who shows anger first loses ground. The one who reacts to an insult reveals their weaknesses to the opponent. The Machiavellian sees provocation as a test. He smiles when others expect fury. He holds his breath when others panic. He remains calm while the world trembles. And in this silence, he wins without raising a sword. Control is not suppression. It is redirection. You do not force emotions to be silent. You transform them into a strategy. Machiavelli noted that rulers acting on emotions often destroyed themselves. Some trusted too easily, blinded by attachment. Others sought revenge, driven by anger. Some hesitated, paralyzed by fear. They all failed because they were transparent. The wise wore emotions like armor, convincingly enough to confuse, yet easily removable at will. The ability to act without attachment is what distinguishes a strategist from a fool. That is why Machiavelli argued that a prince must learn not to be good, not because goodness is wrong, but because emotions often disguise themselves as virtue. Too freely expressed mercy becomes a weakness. Compassion demonstrated too early invites betrayal. The practice of controlling emotions is an understanding of time, energy, and perception. One must realize that the world judges not by your feelings, but by your actions. A man who can cry in solitude and command in public is not a hypocrite. He is a master of balance. Emotion hidden from view becomes a concentrated force, and silence becomes influence. There are moments when silence burns, when your instinct begs you to speak, to fight, to react. But you must remember, every burst of emotion is a confession. Every visible emotion is a clue that your enemies will study. The Machiavellian learns to observe his reactions as if he were watching another person. He asks the question, what does this emotion want me to do? And does this serve my purpose? This question separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, because uncontrolled emotion turns into chaos, but directed emotion becomes creation. Control also sharpens perception. When you no longer drown in emotions, you begin to see others more clearly. You notice a tremor in their words, a flicker in their eyes, fluctuations in their intonation. You read their desires, fears, and ambitions as if they were written before you. The one who controls themselves controls the narrative, becoming a calm center in the storm of reactions. Others, guided by their feelings, begin to revolve around his composure, seeking his stability. Thus, power quietly shifts through control rather than noise. But such mastery requires a habit of observation. It demands that you pay attention not only to yourself, but also to everything around you. Gestures, silences, small betrayals that others overlook become signals. When your emotions calm, your perception sharpens. You begin to see what others do not notice. You notice that every person, every woman, every crowd follows invisible patterns written by their emotions. And when you can see these patterns, you can predict them. When you can predict them, you can influence them. And this leads to Machiavelli's next habit, the power of observing reactions. When a person learns to control their emotions, they begin to see what others are too blind to notice. Their mind becomes calm, like a lake untouched by the wind. And in this tranquility, everything reflects with precision. This is the next step in Machiavelli's mastery. The power of observing reactions. It is the art of seeing before acting, studying before speaking, understanding before making decisions. The world belongs to those who observe, not to those who rush. Most people live as prisoners of their reactions. They hear, react, see, judge, feel, act. But Machiavelli understood that reaction is a habit of the powerless. To react means to be led by circumstances. To observe means to control them. A person who reacts has no time to think. A person who observes has already won before the game begins. Great strategists, from rulers to generals, from philosophers to merchants, all shared this one secret. They were observers of human nature. They knew that people repeat themselves, that each person reveals their desires in small things, their fears in careless words, their intentions in the pauses between sentences. Machiavelli spent hours studying the gestures of politicians, the tone of the ambitious, the hesitations of liars. He realized that power does not require prophecy. She demands only attention. Observation is a weapon that requires patience and emotional restraint. You cannot see clearly if consumed by anger or pride. You cannot understand others if you desperately seek to be understood. Therefore, a Machiavellian mind trains itself to listen more than to speak, noticing what others ignore. It studies people as if they were pages of an open book filled with hidden annotations in the margins. Every glance, every movement, every choice. All of this is data, and he collects it silently. The observer understands that people yearn to reveal themselves. They want to be seen, acknowledged, and understood. Therefore, he provides them space to speak while he listens. In their words, he finds weaknesses. In their enthusiasm, ambitions. In their silence, fears. He understands that reaction exposes emotions, but observation builds an advantage. To observe without reacting means to remain unpredictable, and unpredictability is the language of power. A person observing the world becomes invisible within it. They are present, but not noisy, informed, but not reactive. People underestimate him because he doesn't seek attention, but his silence is not emptiness. It's a strategy. He lets others reveal their intentions first. He allows enemies to speak until they expose their traps. He waits for the moment before he acts. When he finally moves, it seems inevitable because he already knows how everyone around him will react. The observation concerns not only people, but also time, environment, and energy. Machiavelli said that the world moves in cycles. Fortune rises and falls. Alliances are formed and dissolve. Wishes blossom and wither. A wise man does not fight these movements. He studies them. He senses when the moment is coming to an end and prepares for the next. While others complain about changes, the Machiavellian has already adapted because he has been observing all this time. To observe is also to understand the invisible, the motives behind words, the patterns beneath chaos. This realization that strength lies not in what is said, but in what is implied. Most people live on the surface, distracted by appearances, blinded by noise. But the Machiavellian looks deeper. He does not ask what is happening. He asks questions. Why is this happening? Who benefits? Who suffers losses? This question, the habit of delving into the essence, separates wisdom from ignorance. However, observation without preparation is wasted strength. The more you see, the greater your responsibility to act with precision. A Machiavellian mind does not observe for knowledge. It observes to prepare. It uses every detail, every pattern, every piece of information to grow power in silence, because true advantage is born in the shadows, not in the open. The world often confuses stillness with weakness, but the wise know that stillness is incubation, a moment before creation. That is why Machiavelli taught that preparation must always remain in the shadows. The most powerful transformations happen unnoticed. While others declare their ambitions, you must sharpen your tools in silence, because what you reveal too early can be used against you. Observation gives you understanding. Silence protects it.